Well, I'm LifeBlood. This is George G, and the time is right. Welcome to today's guest, strong and powerful Scott Jeffrey Miller. Scott, are you ready to do this?
George G, I am always ready. Thank you for the spotlight.
Excited to have you on. Excited to have you back on the show. Scott is a senior advisor of thought leadership with Franklin Covey. He's a member of Marshall Goldsmith's 100 Coaches. His newest book is Master Mentors, Volume 2, 30 Transformative Insights from Our Greatest Minds. Scott, welcome back. Tell us a little about your personal life, some more about your work, and what motivated you to write the book.
Well, you and I have fairly parallel personal lives. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah with my wife, Stephanie, and we're told blessed to have three sons that are 8, 10, and 12. That was a tough early start to our marriage, but it's getting a little bit better. I'm originally from Florida. I worked for the Walt Disney Company for 4 years, and I just finished a 27-year career with the Franklin Covey Company, the world's most trusted leadership firm. I'm also privileged to host what is now the world's largest weekly leadership podcast in our fifth year. Hits about 7 million people each Tuesday. And from all those amazing interviews with about 300 guests, I've authored this 10-volume series called Master Mentors, where each year I publish a new volume focused on transformational insights from 30 of that year's guests.
I love it. The idea to do that, did that just pop into your head, or you thought, you know what, I'm interviewing all these really, really smart people. I ought to, write books. And you thought, if I'm going to write one, I've got, all these other people. So 10.
I'll be honest, real honest, is I don't know that I've ever had an original thought in my life. I was the chief marketing officer of a global public company. In fact, most people statistically have never had an original thought in their life. And the more I came comfortable with that accusation, I realized, I'm actually a great pollinator. I'm a great aggregator. I'm pretty good at teasing out, that's actually profound. Let's talk more about that. So my idea was to say, gosh, I've had this amazing podcast interviewing really remarkable people, and I want to have more access. I want to create broader access to it beyond just the listeners. So I thought, what if I was to write a book featuring these 30 people with their permission and share a little more context around what Deepak Chopra said, or Ariana Huffington, or Matthew McConaughey, or you name it. So that was the idea, was to just to kind of pollinate their ideas better. I think the first half of my career, George, was very much having the spotlight focused on me. And now I hope the second half of my life and career, statistically, I'm 73% done with my life, which is kind of horrifying at 54 as a white male in America. So I want to have the remaining 28% of my life really have the spotlight focus on other people and help pollinate the ideas. The books have done well, and I'm on to volume 3 now, but that really was the genesis behind the books. By the way, do not ever have an idea to write a book about 30 celebrities. It will crush you with the legal permissions, the publicists, the agents, the editors. Do not write compilation books about celebrities.
Well, that's fascinating, isn't it? And I will just take your advice on that one.
That's one way to say it.
That's that's one of those euphemisms that you hear
Yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah.
Nice. All right. So no original ideas. Somebody asked me once. They told me that they were at a dinner and they went around the table and they said, "What do you think that no what do you believe or think to be true that nobody else thinks?" I was like, "Oh my God, how would I even answer that question?" And I don't know. I'm with you, and like coming to terms with that, getting over it, or embracing it. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, statistically, it's true. The vast majority of humans have never had an original thought. And it's so offensive at first blush. But the more I kind of embraced the statistical accuracy of it, I thought, well, that's okay. I wouldn't know that I was here to have an original thought. I was here to, find my purpose and mission, which I'm still searching for as a 54-year-old, you know, author and podcaster and radio host. But I think I focus less on the necessity of having original ideas and more about not trying to reinvent the wheel, right? My life sadly isn't that much different than your life. We struggle with the same issues and have the same types of 401ks and same types of gas in our cars, and our kids have the same problems. And so I'm kind of focused more on avoiding the mistakes that previous people have made. I think life is half of just avoiding the messes in life. And so I'm more focused on trying to understand what are the paths to success, happiness, joy, congruence that successful people have had, and how to also understand the mistakes that they've made and not to repeat them in my own life and help others do the same. I'm after a 30-year career in the leadership development industry, having been tutored by the most famous man in that business, Stephen R. Covey, for more than a decade of my career. I have learned, George, that I think some large portion of success in life is just avoiding the pitfalls and the potholes that other people fall into. And the other small portion of success is then, finding your own passions and joys. But that's my story.
Well, I think it's excellent. I'm one of those people that it seems I must touch the hot stove myself a lot of the time, but as I've been getting a little bit older, I've been able to actually take in and receive information and apply it into my life. And that's really what you're driving at. That's really what mentorship is.
That's exactly right. These books are called Master Mentors because I passionately believe that we too narrowly define mentorship. Most people believe mentorship is someone you've been partnered with in the C-suite on the 10th floor, or someone that's down the hall that you were part of a program with. And those are great opportunities. Take advantage of those if you have those with your employer. But the fact of the matter is, if you look at my own career, by most measures, wildly successful. I worked really hard and I worked under great people who mentored me. Most of my mentors in life, George, are people I've never met. Like they literally do not know I am alive. I've read their books. I followed their podcast. I flew to conferences where they keynoted. Take Marcus Buckingham. Many of your listeners may know who he is. He was one of the original founders of the strengths movement at Gallup. He wrote Now Discover Your Strengths and First Break All the Rules, and he's gone on to build a huge following. I followed Marcus Buckingham for 30 years. I met him for the first time 3 weeks ago at brunch in San Diego after interviewing for the podcast. Marcus has had a profound impact on me. He didn't know I even existed until about a month ago when I reached out and interviewed him on the podcast. He's one of the biggest names in the industry. And so I think for your listeners and those that are following your podcast, don't limit the definition of who a mentor is in your life. It's a commonality that everyone that I've ever interviewed on this podcast has in common. They have identified mentors in their lives, and not always the most successful person. It could be the person that had 3 divorces. In fact, if I look for a successful marriage, I don't look to be mentored by the guy that's had a 50-year marriage. I go to the guy that's had 3 marriages. Because again, I don't have the patience. I don't have the continence. I don't have the personality of the guy that's had a 50-year marriage. I probably have the personality of the guy that's had 3 marriages, and I want to know what not to do. What are the mistakes you made? And I think mentorship isn't just about being someone else. It's about learning what they did wrong to avoid that. You see a theme here in my conversation. Avoid the messes.
I think that makes a ton of sense. So it's avoid messes. It's learn what has worked. It's maybe pick up a tactic here or there. It's behaviors. What about recognizing that, look at that, there's a human being who has done maybe the thing that I'm interested in doing or the thing that I'm not sure is possible?
No question, right? There's 2 sides to this. But I didn't even get more raw. I mean, I some of my greatest mentors in life are people that have had colossal failures, like colossal failures in their marriage, with their kids, with their businesses. I mean, I think I've learned more from the mistakes of big mentors and their successes. And to your point, you want a guide. You want someone that can help to channel your energy and teach you the lessons that they've learned along the way of what does make for a successful business or a successful brand. So absolutely. I mean, some of my mentors, like Seth Godin, for example, right? A famous podcaster and marketer and blogger. Seth has taught me the difference between being reckless and being fearless. And I used to confuse the two. Stephen Covey taught me the difference between being efficient and being effective. And so when I look for mentors and to highlight them, you look at this book that I wrote, Master Mentors, most of the stories are highlighting something extraordinary this person did that I think is replicable. Or perhaps they survived a trauma, or in fact, a plane crash, or had some intervention in their life that leads you to a positive end in your own life. So there's no question your mentor plays both roles. I just happen to like the idea. I have my own skills, my own personality, my own IQ, my own SAT score or lack of SAT score, right? I have my own set of geniuses and I don't have any of yours. And so I got to run with my own strengths. And again, I'm kind of not obsessed, but I tend to be focused on, so what did you do wrong? What are the temptations and choices that you fell into or made that I will also face, so I can see those coming on the horizon and stay clear of them. Quite frankly, to the extent I've been self-sabotaged in my life, which we all do, it's because I didn't wisely avoid the same temptations or mistakes that other people fell into. Not significant things, ethical or moral big issues, but just the lessons that others that plotted in front of me. I really think it's the key to success is just not falling into the potholes that people did in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I certainly couldn't agree more. And it strikes me that, you know, when you read about when you're on the internet, you wonder, is this really things or behaviors that people are doing, or is it just BS? I'm concerned that many of us are refusing to listen or talk to or take in information from people that we disagree with on a certain topic. What do you think about that?
Well, that's for sure. Look at the elections, right? I mean, yeah, yeah, there's no question about that. Social media, uh, just a remarkable tool. I mean, it's the new social media is the new television, the new radio, it's the new
Hmm.
podcast, it's the new billboard, it's the new, newspaper ad or magazine ad. And so you kind of need to be on social media if you're building a brand, if you're selling products, if you're selling a service, if you're authoring a book, whatever it is. So you got to have a healthy lens about it, right? I'm trolled daily. I had someone a few weeks ago send a post to me that said, I've watched 17 episodes of your podcast and I just can't seem to like you. And I thought, it took you 17 episodes to decide you don't like me? Most people have decided in 17 seconds whether they like me or not. And I think a lot of people, it might crush them, but I kind of find it fascinating fuel to keep going. Like, well, hey, hung in there for 17 weeks. Wow, you're patient. You were really dedicated. So I try to keep all things in perspective. I try to keep a little frivolity with the trolling going on. I try not to fall into the comparison conundrum of, how big your podcast is versus mine. Stay in my lane, do my thing, and just keep going. I'll share a separate story with you. I'm 6'1", about a buck 75 after a hot fudge sundae. I've always been kind of thin, right? And so in my 30s, I was intensely in the gym trying to gain weight, like 3 days a week with a trainer. And I put on a bunch of weight and really transformed myself back in my 30s. Then I got married, had 3 kids, and now I'm back to the dad bod. My point is, I went from, like a buck 58 to about a buck 74 in 4 years. It was all solid muscle. And one time some guy came by the gym and asked my trainer if I was using steroids, which of course was hysterically not true. Because I had literally transformed my body through a lot of hard work. And my trainer said, no, the guy's just really disciplined. And the guy came to me and asked me what my goal was. And I looked at him and I said, to keep going. Like my goal is just to keep going. And in many ways, that's my life goal, whether it be through my books. Some sell well, some are total flops. Some podcast episodes get, 3 million listens, some get 3,000 listens. And so for me, my goal in life is just to keep going. There are setbacks, there are triumphs. Last week, a publisher dropped me. Within 48 hours, I had a new publisher for the series. And so I tried not to be super reactive with ups and downs, two bigs and two highs, two lows, rather. I try to just keep going. It's a long answer, meandering answer to your question, but I think that's been, and I'm a fairly manic person. Kind of, like naturally, I'm kind of family manic, not clinically, I don't think, just sort of personality wise. I try to just keep going and use these tools, social media, other things like that, as a resource to touch as many lives as I can and be touched by as many lives, including the joker that hangs with me for 17 weeks and decides he just can't do it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's hilarious. You need to be
It is
able to laugh about that.
hilarious. And I
That
think he thought he was like shaming me. And I kind of saw it as, wow, you stuck around for 17 weeks. That's a lot longer than I would have stuck around. So kudos to you and me. I
yeah.
tend to have someone, I was lamenting something this morning with a colleague in a text. And I said, My overinflated sense of self-importance comes in great handy during the low times. And the person laughed on the other end. I think there is some value in having a little bit of healthy narcissism, a little bit of healthy sense of, self-importance. I said a little bit,
Yeah, just the right amount,
just the
Scott.
right amount to keep you going in the hard times.
Just and that's
This is not where you expected your
no.
podcast
I I
interview
th-
to go, is it,
I
George?
I I think it's great, and I think a lot about that. We talked about how you're constantly learning, sort of when we open the interview, and you're still searching for it. And I think that we all are. If we're thoughtful people, we are looking for our place in the world, the
Yep.
value that we're providing. And so when somebody gets the opportunity to listen to you, they're like, wow, look at this guy. He's got, the biggest leadership podcast in the world, and he's still, going through this stuff, and he's taking arrows in the front and the back. And one of the big
Daily,
takeaways
daily.
is just you just need to keep moving.
Can I share a quick insight with you?
Please.
I don't want to hijack your podcast. So I worked for the Covey Leadership Center in Franklin Covey for 27 years, right? The most influential leadership firm in the world, given thousands of keynotes. I've written 7 books, blah, blah, blah. And I was at a conference once with Stephen Covey, and he talked about the importance of knowing your mission, finding your mission. In fact, at franklincovey.com, the most trafficked page on that site is the mission statement builder. And he's giving this speech to 1,000 of our employees in the company. And I'm about 35 years old. I'm single at the time, didn't get married till I was 41. And nothing in his speech resonated with me. I'm like, my mission? I have no idea what my mission is. I'm single. I don't know. More tennis, more champagne, more trips to Italy. I don't know, more people cleaning my house, more freak. I have no idea what my mission is in life. And everyone's like weeping and they're having this transformational event. I'm like, I have no idea what my mission is. Dude, I'm 54. I still don't know what my mission in life is. I kind of hate that question. Stop telling me you found your mission. It's insulting. I've not found my mission. How my mission is to pay the mortgage this month. My mission is to launch 3 boys in a tough world. My mission is to keep my marriage together. My mission is to scrape together January's tuition payment for my boys' school. That's my mission. My mission is not to argue with my mother during the holidays. That's my mission. My mission is to send her off on a plane 6 days from now, still liking me. That's my mission. And then, I mean, I'm just being raw. I have no clue what my mission is in life or my purpose. Not sure I ever will. And I've been in the leadership business for 30 years. I've interviewed the biggest names in the business. I have no clue what my mission is. Then our second founder, a man less well known named Hiram Smith, got up. He invented the Franklin Planner, right? Sold hundreds of millions of Franklin Planners. We've since sold that company. He's the father of time management, so to speak, modern time management. He gets up and he starts talking about your values. And this was not a new conversation, but he says, if you want to have a successful life and find congruency and calm in your life, peace, inner peace, you've got to identify your values. And I thought, ding, now that's interesting. I'd heard that idea. It was not a new idea to me, but I had never identified my values, George. So I went off as a single 35-year-old, got married 6 years later or 7 years later, and went off and I went back to my home and I actually identified my values. I wrote down 7 things that I valued: purpose, health, integrity, loyalty, positivity, abundance, and learning. PhilPal, PhilPal. PhilPal, that's the acronym. And I kind of dedicated my life to living in alignment with those 7 values. And I think the exercise around getting really clear on my values: purpose, health, integrity, loyalty, positivity, abundance, and learning. And I'm not sure I'll ever discover what my mission or passion is, other than to say is, you know what? Perhaps it's just to live in accordance with those 7 values and have people catch me doing it. And at my funeral, if someone mentions, did you know Scott's values were these 7 things? Maybe they'll share a story. Maybe they won't. That probably is more invaluable to me than mission. No offense to my hero, Stephen Covey. I still have no idea what my mission is. I'm trying to uncover it, discover it. In the meantime, I've identified my values and I'm trying to live fiercely in accordance with them. And maybe that's some value to your listeners this morning.
Yeah.
Take the time to identify your values, rank order them, and then set your priorities in alignment with them. Most people, if you ask someone, what are your values? They'd say, oh, freedom and liberty and patriotism. And then the next week you'd say, what are your values? Oh, harmony. People would make stuff up that sounded good. Stop making it up. And by the way, don't pick your values based on anyone else's. I don't give a flying crap what George D thinks about my values. They're my values. I live in accordance with them, and you shouldn't care what I think about your values. Go pick your values, live in accordance with them, and you'll find, I hope, your mission in life. Wish me luck.
I love it.
How's
Good
that for
luck.
a diatribe from a guest?
Boom. Powerful. Well done. Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. Certainly, we've all sat through those seminars. You're like, yeah, great mission. I don't even write. Okay. I'm 25, I'm 35, I'm 45, whatever. That's not resonating, but then something does click. And when you align your values with your priorities and your habits and your actions, you're probably going to get closer to the life you want versus the life you don't want. So
I'm probably a pretty bad ambassador for the Franklin Covey website. I'm super passionate about their company. I love them. I'm still an ambassador for them, but that's not for everyone, including me, the chief marketing officer of the company for a decade.
I love it. Well, Scott, thank you so much for coming back on the show. Where can people learn more about you? How can they engage? And where can they pick up a copy of Master Mentors Volume 2?
So my books are in bookstores everywhere, online and digital. You can buy my books both in print, digital, audio, and video. My books are now Master Mentors Volume 1 is a video book.
Oh,
You can
cool.
visit litvideobooks.com, L-I-T, Lit Video Books. They take books and they translate them into 50-minute videos for those YouTube generation people who like to watch versus read or listen. You can visit scottjeffreymiller.com, or you can subscribe to the On Leadership podcast. Search for On Leadership with Scott Miller, interviewing Tony Robbins, Brene Brown, Jay Shetty, some great guests coming up in the new year. There's about 250 episodes that are aired, video and audio. You can also follow me on every social platform: YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, you name it. I am on it.
Love it. Well, if you enjoyed this as much as I did, show Scott your appreciation and share today's show with a friend who also appreciates good ideas. Pick up a copy of Master Mentors Volume 2 wherever you buy your books. Check out the litvideobooks.com, L-I-T videobooks.com as well. And then go to scottjeffreymiller.com and check out the On Leadership podcast with Scott Miller as well. Thanks again, Scott.
Thank you, George.
And until next time, remember, do your part by doing your best.